Thank you, Beth. Thank you. Thank you. Can I just say a huge thank you? Look at this turnout. This is amazing. Merci infiniment d'être ici. And I just also want to acknowledge all the amazing leaders that came before, that have built the pathway for us, that have helped us to be where we are. Without your sacrifice, without your hard work, we would not have the powerful movement that we have. Just once more, to all the leaders that have brought us to this position, thank you. And I just got to say, Beth Mayers is a pretty incredible candidate. If you look at her track record or what she's done, she's been involved in film, helping to create a cooperative, started her own outdoor company, also an activist fighting against poverty. And she's really someone that is on your side. She's going to be an incredible representative here. I also got to shout out Rob Boulay from Nipissing, Temiskaming. He's right here as our candidate. Someone who's going to be a strong voice for us, shows that we understand rural communities. And we know what rural communities are going through and northern communities, and we're going to fight hard for you. And with Rob and with Beth, you've got strong candidates in this part of the community. Oh, I also got to say, not here today, but we've got Steph Paquette, who's running a nickel belt. I mean, we got a star-studded team, literally with Steph Paquette. He's a rock star. But we've got an awesome team, really excited and proud of them all. Thank you. Si je peux dire quelques mots en français, ici, on a beaucoup de gens qui ont vraiment donné beaucoup, contribué beaucoup pour notre mouvement. Mais si je peux dire quelque chose de France à France, Jelena, comme mon ami, comme ma collègue, dans l'Assemblée ici, l'Assemblée législative ici en Ontario, c'était grâce à France que j'ai eu la chance de parler un peu de français. Donc, chaque fois que je m'améliore, c'est France qui me dit « Oh, continuez, c'est bon ». Donc, je veux vraiment me remercier, France, pour toujours croire en moi. Donc, merci beaucoup, France. So, friends, we are here today to talk about affordability. Now, affordability means a lot of things to a lot of people. For some people, it means being able to afford medication. And with the cost of medication going up and being so expensive, that is a massive question of affordability. For some people, it's being able to go to the dentist. And for millions of Canadians, they can't afford to go to the dentist. And it is a massive question of affordability, especially for families that have got kids and they can't afford for them to go. Housing is a massive question of affordability. If you can't find a home to live in, a place to call home, I mean, everything else seems to be secondary if you can't find a place to live. And if rent is expensive and buying is expensive, that's another question of affordability. So I think about why we're in this position, why it's kind of getting tougher and tougher for people to make ends meet. We look at the economy, and the economy seems to be booming. But I ask you, who's it booming for? Because it's not booming for everybody, right? There's certain people that are doing really well at the top. There's corporations making billions and billions of dollars at the top, making money at the top, but people are having a harder time to get by. And I think about why that is. Well, you don't have to look too far. You look to Ottawa, and you look at liberal or conservative governments, and you look at their track record. They've consistently, regularly chosen to make life easier for the very top, for the well-connected insiders. It's easier and easier for them, and it's harder for everyone else. And so one concrete example, the cost of medication. Well, Mr. Trudeau said he would lower the cost of medication in 2015 with one simple step. The board that sets the prices for medication, they asked for a new set of countries to compare to. And if we had a different set of countries to compare prices, we could lower the cost of medication by up to 20%. Now, 4 years went by, and Mr. Trudeau broke the promise. It didn't do it. And we wondered, why didn't he do it? Why didn't he lower the cost of medication? It seemed to be an easy thing to do. Wouldn't have cost us anything. Why did he break that promise? Well, we did a little research. Guess how many times the big pharma lobbyists met with Mr. Trudeau's government? Wild guess, how many times in 4 years? 37, that's a lot of times. Even higher. Even higher than 50. Even more than 60. They met with them over 600 times. Yes, the big pharma met with Mr. Trudeau's government over 600 times, and guess what happened to that promise that would have lowered the cost of medication for Canadians? Down the drain. That's a good line, actually. I'm going to use that one. Down the drain. The promise went down the drain. Because they'd rather protect the profits of big pharma. And now, guess what's happening right before an election? Guess what Mr. Trudeau's promising again? He says, oh, I'm going to bring down the price of medication. I'm going to do that thing I said I'd do 4 years ago. I'm going to do it now. How can we believe him now? How do we know that after he promises now to do it, that after he gets elected, big pharma lobbyists come in again and say, hey, don't do it. It's going to hurt our profits. He doesn't cave in again. And that's the thing. With liberals and conservatives, you get again and again governments that don't choose to help people, they help those at the top. We have got to change that, and we are going to change that together. So I'll leave it there. There's a lot that we want to do, and I'll get into that, but I wanted to spend more time hearing your questions. So I'll wrap it up there. We're going to do a lot together. I'm really excited. I feel like there's an energy that's building. A lot of folks want things to happen differently, and I think we can do that. I'm confident we can do it. I'm confident we can change things around. So I'll have Beth come back up, and we'll start answering your questions. Beth, thank you.
Sorry. Oh, I'm sorry.
I think Beth is going to find someone with a mic because we've got a mic in the crowd. And there it is. Okay. And our friend in the crowd is going to help with Beth in coordination, and they're going to help find the people. Hi, by the way.
Hi.
Oh, there's two of you. Come find the folks.
There is someone right here. There's someone here. Okay.
Hi.
Hi.
Just one moment. I wrote down my question. Sorry about that. Okay. So my name is Sarah Kittler-Putzier, and I have a 6-year-old son who's autistic. In light of the announcement made today that our service provider, which is CCR, Child and Community Resources, who is the primary service provider for autistic youth and their families in Northern Ontario, that they will no longer be able to offer fee-for-service therapies due to layoffs and job uncertainty, which are in direct correlation with the devastating changes made by the Ontario Conservative government to the Ontario Autism Program. Needs are at an all-time high for families and children, youth, and adults on the autism spectrum. A federal autism strategy has never been more important. My question is, how can you ensure that the federal autism strategy, which has been placed on your election platform, will be made a priority? And what will the program look like? As well as, will actually autistic people, parents of children with autism, and autism professionals be primary consults in ensuring a fair and equitable implementation of the programming?
Thank you very much for the question. Very important. Thank you. So thank you for bringing that up. And first of all, I'm really sorry about what's going on right now. It is really tough for families with autistic kids. It's really tough. And this is just an example of what conservatives do. I mean, these are some of the most vulnerable kids that need supports, families that need help. And instead of providing the help that you and your family need, Mr. Ford said he was for the people, but he must have got the word people mixed up. He's for the powerful corporations, not for the people. And he cut the services that the kids need. And it's been devastating. I've heard heartbreaking stories. I didn't know that was just announced today, but that makes it even harder for people in the north who are already having a hard time getting services. It makes it even harder. So we know we've got to do a lot more. This is just wrong what's happening. And that's why we're going to step up. Where conservative governments are cutting services, we're going to step up and reinstate those services. So what we're planning to do is we need to work, and your question was, will we work with experts and families? Yes. We want to develop a national strategy that takes into consideration there might be conservative governments that come in that slash funding and slash services. We need to have a national strategy that provides support to families when they're in need. So we'll work with you, we'll work with experts, and we'll develop a national plan so that families don't get left behind, because we cannot let you get left behind.
So picking up on the healthcare question, I'm of an age where my family members and friends are all starting to use the healthcare system a lot more. They've worked all their lives, they've had a benefit package, and they really believed that they were going to be taken care of. But they get into the hospital and then they find that the daily rate is much higher than their benefit package. They find that their medications aren't even covered when they're in the hospital. I had to go out and buy Tylenol for my sister when she was in hospital. Wow. They certainly don't get any help with mobility devices that they need so they can stay in their own homes, and there is no place for them in long-term care. The waiting list is just so long. People are getting actually, I believe, shunted off to rehab when they're nowhere close to rehab, but that's a bed and that's where they're put, and it's completely inappropriate. I had to go out and seek help from the Legion's Poppy Fund to get mobility devices so my mom could stay in her own home. You know, these are things that should not be happening in our Canada, and I'm wondering, what are you going to do exactly to address those issues?
Thank you so much for the question. So you touched on a lot of healthcare concerns, and these are really troubling trends. And the fact that your sister had to go through that and you had to go get her medication, I mean, that is not what we expect from our healthcare system. But you're not alone. I mean, this is what's happening across Canada, because what's happened over the years, there used to be a 50-50 split between the federal government and the provincial governments. The federal government would put up half the funding, and then provincial governments would put up half. But over the years, that's eroded. Over the years, conservative and liberal governments have chosen to make other things a priority. Tax cuts for powerful corporations. Last year, $14 billion to corporations that wanted to buy corporate jets and limos. That became a priority. And they keep on cutting down on the amount that we invest in healthcare. So now what used to be 50-50, do folks roughly know what it is now? That's right. It's 75-25. You're absolutely right. So it used to be 50-50. Now imagine provinces are having to do with half of what they used to get from the federal government effectively. Actually, we have a critic here that can, and she's nodding, so I feel okay. France, I was a little nervous when I said the figure. I was like, uh-oh, France is going to correct. She'll probably stand up and correct me. I'd welcome that, though. But yeah, it's been a massive cut. And so what that's meant is that, you know, the service that used to be there for families, and you expect when you bring your loved one in, they get the services they need, are not there. And so we want to turn that around. We need to invest in our healthcare system. You know, Tommy Douglas had a dream. Canadians had a dream that if you're sick, it shouldn't be your salary or your income status or your job status shouldn't determine the care you get. It shouldn't be out of pocket. Everyone in our country deserves dignity and respect. So the first step we're going to do, the first step immediately, what we're going to do in 1 year, we're going to pool our money together. We're going to go to each province and say, for the same amount that you spend right now on buying medications for hospitals, for the same amount, we're going to put in an amount, about $9 billion, and we're going to fund a universal pharmacare plan that will mean that if you need medication in our country, you use your health card, not your credit card. Everyone deserves coverage, and that's what we're going to make happen. Okay.
Hey, how's it going, Jagmeet?
Hey, how's it going, man?
Great. I'm a union worker here. I work underground. And one of the things that my brothers and sisters are concerned about are pension theft and some deferred compensation like healthcare plans. And we're seeing employers and provincial governments legislate and limit our ability to collective bargain fairly and really just attack pensioners that put in 30 years of service and worked their whole lives for those kind of pensions. If we are to elect a federal NDP, what kind of things can you do to reinstate workers' rights and help protect some of those deferred earnings?
For sure. Thank you for the question.
You're welcome.
It's really important. What you're describing is horrible if you think about it. You've got people that are working their whole lives They spend their whole lives working and contributing to a company. And when that company goes bankrupt, the folks that, the folks that spent all their lives working hard, are they the priority? No. But are the wealthy financiers and big banks and creditors, do they become the priority? I mean, that makes no sense. They're already wealthy and powerful. Why are we making their wealth more the priority than working people? So we have a bill that we put forward by Scott Duval. Yeah, powerful, and he's a steel worker too. So, and Scott Duval put forward a bill where we could solve this problem. If a company goes bankrupt, workers shouldn't be at the bottom of the priority. Workers should be at the top of the priority. They should have their pensions protected. And you said something really important. When a company doesn't pay a worker their pension, and creditors and financiers get the money first, that's pension theft. That is stealing from workers. And we're going to end pension theft. So Beth will have someone to come around in the front. It's Beth's pointing out, but whoever you got.
Yeah, just pass it. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay, I'll come to you. I'll come to you.
You pick him out, Beth.
Okay.
We got two runners. They'll run around.
There we go.
Okay. I got it.
Okay.
I got it. I promise. One,
Oh, we got
they,
someone.
not
Okay.
she. Two, I have two kind of really important questions about two very vulnerable parts of society that are kind of getting stinted. One, why can't a disabled person get married without losing their benefits?
Yeah.
Whether fully or partially.
Yeah.
Or be in any kind of common law or engagement. Why? Why shouldn't they be allowed to live with the people they love? Like, why should they, in some cases, be forced to move entire cities and provinces apart? It's not fair. What are you gonna do to prevent that? Stop that from being a thing, because it's ridiculous and inhumanizing.
Thank you very much. Thank you for bringing that up, and thank you for pointing out the right pronouns as well. I appreciate that, and thank you for having the courage to talk about something that it takes courage to ask a question in front of a room full of people. So thank you for doing that. It takes courage. You're right. I mean, to put it bluntly, you're right. And why is it that it's being discriminated against? That folks who are living with disabilities see that they're being discouraged, in fact, from living with a person they love or choosing to get married, and it's really unfair. We've got to find a way to solve it. This is something that happens at the provincial level, and I'm going to try to see what I can do at the federal, but I hear you, and it is a problem, and it shouldn't happen that way. Thank you. I know James has got someone back here.
Yes, my name is Keith Lovely.
Hey, Keith.
I'm an immigrant.
Hey, that's
I've
awesome.
been in Canada since 1945.
Welcome.
I've served my country. I've been married for 55 years.
Woo.
I'm an immigrant.
I got a lot to catch up. I only had a year and a half right now.
I'd like you to raise the issue of immigration. We need more immigration in this country. Thank you.
Keith. That was awesome. Give it up to Keith. It's kind of one of those hard touching moments. Thank you, Keith. That's beautiful. Yeah, we do. Yes, the answer is yes. Yes, we do. You're absolutely right. We love it. I love, Keith, that you said that. It's a powerful message. Canada's a beautiful place, and we are stronger because people have come here and built up this country together. And I think we're all thankful for that. And that's a beautiful thing. Thank you, Keith. I can't add anything more than what you said. Yes, you're beautiful, and thank you for saying that.
My name's Chris, and I
Hi,
work
Chris.
at the legal clinic here in Sudbury. They were quite right about people being forced to give up their only income if they marry, because if they receive provincial disability and they get married, then the spouse is expected to support them. They have no further income of their own, even though they're incapable of earning. And nothing has been done about that since 1997. About time there's been some change. As I say, I work at the legal clinic, so
You see this.
I see people who are having huge problems maintaining a roof over their head, trying to get an income or to maintain an income with nearly impossible rules, and trying to get legal help, enormous cuts to legal aid, trying to get an education. People are having to give up their university because they can't go back because OSAP's not high enough anymore.
Oh, yeah. Big one.
Now, all of these things are provincial issues, and we know very well that even with France's best efforts, it's going to be 2022 before we can put Doug Fraud where he belongs. However, in times past, when the federal government made transfer payments, they specified where the money was to go. Now, I can't remember how much. I've been around for some years. I don't remember just how long ago they detached the strings and made it just a lump sum payment. You do what you want with it. Well, an awful lot of provinces have proved conclusively they can't be trusted to do what they want with it.
Hey.
Now, don't get me wrong. I would love to see you as our next prime minister. But even if you are not our next prime minister, if you hold the balance of power, what sort of things are you going to be able to do to get us the things we need?
Sure.
And that's a big one.
Yeah, I hear you. Thank you for the question. I appreciate your being frank with me, but if I could be frank as well, I know how much people need someone that's going to fight for them. The rich have had someone fighting for them for too long, so I am in this election to run to become prime minister of this country to make it better for people. But you touched on, thank you. You touched on a lot of really good points. There's a lot that we can do though directly. And so I want to touch on some of the things. You mentioned students. Here is a really clear contrast, something that we can do directly on day one. So we looked at when students go to university and then they graduate with a lot of debt. It's really tough for a lot of students. And what happens on top of that debt, there's interest that's charged. And then interest isn't just prime. It's often prime plus 2.5, prime plus 3. Yeah, prime plus 3. So you've got students that have debt, and then they have interest that's prime plus 3. That's more than banks charge. So effectively, liberal and conservative governments are making money off of student debt. That is outrageous. And then I looked at the track record of our friend, Mr. Trudeau. Last year, this is astonishing. Last year, Mr. Trudeau's government waived $6 billion in corporate loans. So they said $6 billion that loans that corporations owned, they waived those loans. They said, okay, they're forgiven. But they charged over 4 years, they charged students the cumulative amount of $3 billion. So they charged $3 billion from students, but they effectively gave $6 billion to corporations. That is the exact contrast that we're faced with. I can tell you, I'm sure you don't have to doubt this, but I'm going to tell you all straight up, right, looking right at you. A first day of a new Democratic government, the first thing we'll do on day one is waive all interest for student debt right away, immediately, right away. No interest. And we're going to make the corporations pay their loans.
Yeah, no kidding. Can we get a mic back here?
Oh, there's one.
Oh, okay,
Boom.
good.
Thanks, Beth.
My
You're doing
name
great.
is Laurier Chartrand. I've been retired now for 20 years, but I've had some very hard-earned experience in the field of workmen's compensation. And I've discovered that in
The whole room has
Ontario,
had bad experiences, sounds like.
that
Sorry.
in Ontario, our Charter of Rights and the Constitution of Canada is not worth the paper it's written on. And I can offer you a way to change that and show the Liberals and Conservative exactly what they're giving us.
Okay.
And the simplest way to do that is simply have your attorney general elected by the people so they can't control them. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for your suggestion. Thank you. Merci beaucoup. Merci. Aussi, si quelqu'un a des questions en français, parce que je sais qu'il y a beaucoup de francophones ici à Sudbury. Donc, si vous avez des questions en français, on est prêt de répondre. Je suis prêt à répondre en français. OK?
Oh, hi. Myself and the illustrious former Mayor Monoping
Hey.
listen to CBC Radio. And on the current review, they had a really hard woman who knew everything about finance, and she tried to get answers from the government about the financialization by the banks of residents. In other words, you take an apartment building and you buy it, and then you put a couple of things in it, and then you sell it, you know, flip it and sell it, and nobody can afford it anymore, and people are on the street.
Yep.
So she really tried to get answers. She tried to get financial answers from the government, and I forget her name, but it was a really good program. And she said she came away unsatisfied, like she didn't get any answers from the government. And you walk down the street, and you're seeing people in stairwells all over the place with no place to go in the wintertime.
Yep.
And if you're in Toronto, they're living on the grates.
Yep.
Now, this is Canada, for heaven's sake. You mean to tell me if there are some people who are afflicted with mental illness, that I get, but all of these people are not. And I've even fed people on the street. Why are they able to do this with housing? And that was the lead this morning for you on the news media, that you were going to talk about housing.
Yes, let's talk about it. It's a great question. Really appreciate that. Thank you. I love the passion. That's awesome. That's why. No, it's good. That's what we need. Thank you to our elders. No, it is appalling. You're absolutely right. And that's how we got to think about it. I mean, we live in a really wealthy country, and you're absolutely right. There's no reason why we can't build a system where everyone can have a place to call home. Like there's no reason. I don't accept any excuse where we can't do it. And so what we're going to do is a couple of things. First off, you touched on this, that there's properties becoming financialized. I like the way you said that. It's cool. I'm going to quote you on that. What's actually happening is you're absolutely right. Homes are getting more and more expensive, and it's going at a skyrocketing rate. And there's some things that we can do to stop it. So some of the reason why that's happening is people are just dropping their money into Canada and using housing like a stock. They put their money in a house knowing that Canada is stable, and they see the house value go up and up. Or they buy a condo and they wait and see its price go up and up. And what's happening is it's driving people out of ever being able to own a place. So there's a couple things we can do. This has worked in BC. The BC government's done this. They put in a foreign buyer's tax because they saw a lot of folks that were just using the Canadian housing market as like a stock exchange. And we don't want that. We want our housing to be used for people to live in it, not as a stock exchange. And so the foreign buyer's tax meant that if you were a permanent resident or a citizen, you can buy a place. But if you're just putting your money here to try to keep it in a stock, then that's not allowed. We want to put that in place at the federal level as well. So we'd impose a federal buyer's tax. A federal foreign buyer's tax that would stop that. The second thing, which is a pretty astounding when you think about it, BC also found this out, that money laundering was driving up the cost of housing significantly. And they found it was about 5% of the rising cost of housing was because of money laundering alone that they could account for. And a lot of it they can't actually figure out. And a lot of it they can't account for. And they said it's actually even more of an issue as you head east. So it's impacting Ontario and other provinces, prairies, Atlantic provinces. So what we want to do to stop that is, what we need to do to ensure that we're tackling money laundering is, at the federal level, we've got a department that works on this. And I asked the question in Parliament, I said, well, we've got a department, but we just learned that they're not actually doing any cases on money laundering. And then Mr. Trudeau's answer, I'm sure you can guess, was not to answer. But this is a serious issue. We can tackle money laundering. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to make sure we clamp down on money laundering, on speculation, and make sure we control the price of housing from going out of control. The final thing, though, is we need to build more affordable housing. And the federal government hasn't done that in like 30 years. If you look around communities where there's co-ops or nonprofit housing, housing that's affordable, it was built in the 90s. And after that, there hasn't been any new builds. So we need to build affordable housing that's cooperative and non-market and non-profit. So there's an affordable rental option for people. That's not one where they're worried about ever maybe being kicked out by a landlord, but something that's not for profit, that's non-market, that's cooperative, so that people can have the confidence of knowing you can find a place to call home, you can live there, the rents don't cost the same as a mortgage, they're affordable, and then people have an option. We can change this country and build more affordable housing, and we're committed to doing it.
Time for 2 more questions.
En français.
En français, excellent. OK.
Le Canada, on est un pays riche.
Oui.
On est riche avec de l'eau, avec du métal, avec bois, avec différentes choses. Le plus gros problème, j'ai vu les derniers 10 ans au Canada, le problème des enfants sont sur la drogue. Ils se tuent avec la drogue depuis 10 ans. Hey, on a un vrai problème dans toutes les provinces. C'est quoi le problème? C'est ils ont besoin du soin. Ils ne savent pas d'où aller chercher de l'aide.
C'est ça.
Le gouvernement du fédéral puis les provinces, c'est le temps. On commence à sauver le monde.
Oui.
Et le monde
Oui,
peut
bien
mourir sur la rue chaque jour. Il n'y a pas de raison pour ça.
Non.
Pour un pays riche comme on est au Canada, il n'y a pas de raison.
Non, c'est vrai ça.
Et
Merci
c'est
beaucoup.
quoi le gouvernement va faire, je ne sais pas.
OK, merci beaucoup. Merci pour la question.
Merci.
Oui. Merci. Une belle question. Je pense qu'il faut le répondre en français et en anglais parce que c'était tellement une belle question. Donc, une bonne question. Donc, en fait, vous avez raison. Ce qu'on vit dans la société, on a un problème de drogue. Il y a une crise des opioïdes aussi. Et notre approche ne fonctionne pas. L'approche, c'était si quelqu'un a une dépendance, on le traite comme un criminel. Et ça ne fonctionne pas parce que ça ne donne pas les aides aux gens qui ont besoin, en fait, de services de réhabilitation. Ils ont besoin de soins, pas de justice criminelle, ils ont besoin de justice sociale. Donc, c'est exactement ce qu'on va faire. On va changer le système de donner des soins aux gens qui en ont besoin. On va donner des soins aux gens qui font face à des dépendances. On va donner des services de réhabilitation. On va donner de compassion au lieu d'un système de justice criminelle. Et ça, c'est comment on peut vraiment répondre aux besoins des gens. Comment on peut comment on peut régler ce problème. Oui. Merci. I just want to touch on the question real quick. Okay, I'm going to touch on that question real quick in English as well. The question was really beautiful about the problem of the drug epidemic in Canada and how young people, we've got a beautiful country. You had a beautiful kind of intro on a beautiful country that we live in, but young people are dealing with this problem of drugs. And people are being treated with the criminal justice system when they actually need rehab and they need supports, they need healthcare, they need help. They don't need to be put in jail, they need to be put in rehab. And so that's what our response is going to be. The old approach hasn't worked. Thousands of Canadians have died because of the opioid crisis. We can't continue doing the same thing, hoping a different result will happen. We want to save lives. I remember my dad, he was living with an addiction, and it was pretty horrible. He lost a lot of weight at the end of the addiction. He couldn't eat anymore. He went from 180-pound strong guy to 100 pounds. I remember lifting him in my arms, and he felt like a little kid. And when your dad feels like a kid like that, it's just heartbreaking. And we didn't have any access to private insurance. My dad had gone through a tough time, lost his job. And it was a publicly funded rehab center that had a bed available that took him in, and he got better. It saved his life, and it helped our family. It saved our family in a lot of ways. And that's why I believe passionately that every single person in our country should have access to the care they need. It should not matter on their salary. It should not matter their job. They should be able to have the access to care they need, everyone in our country.
Last question.
Hi, I'm Onam Ojla. Being a half Kashmiri, first of all, I want to thank you for standing for the rights of my people while they are being denied the basic human rights. While Trudeau and Scheer remained silent, you took the courage to speak for the right side. I thank you for that. Thank you. And my question is that being an international student also, international students are important part of the Canadian immigration policy. They have to pay 3 or 4 times the fee while they can only work for 20 hours a week. Most of them cannot afford that tuition fee. So consequently, they have to work illegally, which leads to their exploitation and also the evasion of the tax by the employers. So I urge you to make a policy to improve the conditions of the international students in Canada. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you for the question. And you're absolutely right. I mean, we really value people who choose to come to Canada. New students that come here are contributing to the economy. They're working in our communities. They're spending money in our communities. It's an investment, and it's something that helps us out. But a part of the problem is the cost of tuition is so high. And that cost of tuition is high for young people in general, but it's particularly high for international students. And so we've got to tackle that, and we've got to make it more affordable. The other thing you touched on is that, when students come here and they have a limited number of hours they work, it puts a lot of strain on the students. So we've got to find a better way forward. We all heard the story of a student that worked 30 hours a week and then was getting deported because of that. And that's pretty heartbreaking. That's a pretty horrible story. So we've got to find a better way. The other thing I think is that if a student comes to Canada and gets educated here, it should count towards their immigration. They've learned the system. They've gotten trained in Canada. They should have an easier path forward. So I think that's something that we should look at as well. But on the tuition fee thing, I didn't get to touch on this. This will help international students, but also students that are here in Canada as well. I touched on day one ending the interest on student loans, and that's important. But then students also still feel the weight of that. They still feel the crush of the cost of tuition. And I remember when I was going through that tough time, I talked about I was able to make my way out of it because I was able to go to law school. And for me, when I went to law school, it was $8,000 a year tuition. And that same law, it was not too bad, actually. And my family, my dad was, my mom and dad had to declare bankruptcy, and they were going through lots of financial difficulty. So I had to be very careful about the choices I made. So going to law school for $8,000 a year made sense. But that same law school today, rough guess how much it costs? Someone just jumped right to the number. Didn't let me build up my story, but I was pretty close. It's getting close to 30,000. I went to Osgood, so it's getting close to 30. So just for a degree, you're getting close to $100,000 just to get a degree. And that's not even factoring all of your costs. I can tell you with all honesty, I would have never done it. And I don't think I'm just one person, I wouldn't have gone on to become the leader of a national party. But I think about all the young people that could contribute so much. Not just me, I'm just one person. Imagine all of the young people that aren't choosing to pursue their dreams because it costs too much. Not because they don't have the passion, the drive. And I feel like we're missing out on what they could contribute. So not only do we want to waive tuition interest on student debt, we want to replace loans with grants. And we want to go one step further. We want to work towards a country where from your kindergarten to your career, there's no barriers. The kids can pursue any education they want without barriers. That means free tuition. Thank you. We got time for more?
I think that's it. No, that's it.
Oh, no. Someone give us a signal. We have one more. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, who are you going to give it to then? Okay.
Okay, sorry.
It's tough. I'm sorry we can't get everybody. I'm sorry. I love that there's so many people interested, though.
I just want to speak on behalf of homeless youth. I'm involved with the Sudbury Action Centre for Youth. We deal with kids with addictions. We deal with kids who are homeless on the street. And we know for a fact that the number of homeless is increasing.
Yeah.
The number of shelter beds has gone down, and the numbers waiting has gone up. We have a young girl who is 18 years old with a 2-month-old baby who's been staying at one of the shelters in town and is being pressured every day to get out. And when she was asked where she would go, she'd say, well, I'll be on the street with my 2-month-old baby. Wow. And this is not right. These kids need places to stay. They can't get their act together if they don't have some place to go home to.
You're absolutely right.
I don't know if the federal government can do anything about that or not.
No, that's so true. No, your story is that's a heartbreaking story. I mean, that's how bad things have become, that we've got young persons having to choose between a shelter or the streets. I mean, that is a failure of policy. That's a failure of our country. And that's why we want to change that. Like, we cannot continue down the same path. We have to invest right now in building housing. We have to build. Our plan is to make up for those 30 years of inaction. We want to build 500,000 new affordable homes across this country immediately. We've got to get to work. We can't wait. We can't wait anymore. So friends, thank you so much. Thank you, Beth. Thank you. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate all of you for being here so much. And our amazing candidate, Beth, Rob, thank you so much. Let's give them some love as well. Yes. Thank you to this beautiful room of people showing the power of progressive politics. This is amazing. Thank you. And I'm going to take some questions from the media. We've got media with us, and they're going to ask some questions. So we're going to hear from the media questions, and then stick around, though, because I'm going to hear from you, and we're going to have some time to chat and to hang out. So don't leave. Stay in the shot also, because you're going to look all good on TV. You can tell your family. Tell your family you're on TV. So stay in the shot, but mostly stick around, because we're going to chat afterwards. So I see some other hands. I'm trying to talk to people afterwards, okay? We're going to go to the media questions.
Hi, Mr. Singh. It's Annie Bergeron-Oliver with CTV National News.
Hi, Annie.
Hi. In Verner today, I spoke to a few voters, and they said they like you, they like your policy, they like the NDP, but they also told me they were not ready to vote for a prime minister who wears a turban. How frustrating is it to hear these types of racist comments from voters, and what would you say to them?
I believe in Canada. I believe in Canadians, and I believe Canadians are ready for someone who's going to put them first. We've seen Liberals and Conservatives continue to take people for granted. You know, Liberals think that they're going to get in once, and then Conservatives think afterwards, oh, we'll just get in afterwards. And they're really just taking Canadians for granted. I'm not going to take Canadians for granted. New Democrats never do that. We fight for people. We're on their side, in their corner, and I'm going to make sure people know that if you want someone who's going to fight for you, build the housing, take on the telecom companies, take on the big pharma, I'm going to do that. Our team's going to do that.
Hi, Mr.
En français, I got it en français for that one. Donc, moi, je pense que les gouvernements libéraux et conservateurs, on prend les gens pour acquis. Ils ont dit que oui, cette fois, c'est ma fois, je vais être Premier ministre. Après, les conservateurs disent, oh, c'est maintenant mon fois, c'est mon tour, je vais être Premier ministre. Et je pense que ça doit arrêter. C'est inacceptable que les gouvernements libéraux et conservateurs continuent de travailler pour les plus riches, pas pour les gens. Ce que je propose, comme un néo-démocrate, comme chef du parti, je vais me battre pour vous, pour les gens, pour monsieur, madame, tout le monde.
Hi, Mr. Singh. Hannah Thibodeau, CBC National News.
Hi, Hannah.
Hi. I want to follow up on Annie's comments there, and I heard some of the similar things, unfortunately. Do you consider these comments racist?
Someone else said we. C'est gentil. I think that, there's some prejudice that exists in society. I've been told a lot in my life. I've been told that because of the way I look, that I couldn't advance in my career. I've been told that because of the way I look, I couldn't get ahead. But I've met with a lot of my colleagues who were told the same thing. I've met women who've been told because of their gender, they couldn't advance in their careers. I've met people because of their sexuality who were told that they couldn't advance in their careers. I've met people who couldn't advance because of the color of their skin, because of their age. A lot of people face barriers because of who they are. I've experienced a little bit of what that's like, and I want to build a Canada where no one's left behind, where everyone can get ahead.